David thinks he owns it. I think he thinks that because I left the band in 1985, that he owns Pink Floyd, that he is Pink Floyd. I'm irrelevant.
The feud between Pink Floyd's Roger Waters and David Gilmour has become one of rock music's most notorious battles, with the remaining members launching a calculated campaign of musical revenge after Waters left in 1985. Rather than a single track, Pink Floyd's post-Waters era produced multiple songs crafted specifically to challenge and mock their former bandmate, who thought he owned the band's legacy. The opening Salvo, Learning to Fly, and the metaphor of liberation. Pink Floyd's first album, without Waters, 1987's A Momentary Lapse of Reason, arrived during the height of their legal battle, and its lead single, Learning to Fly, served as both a declaration of independence and a subtle dig at their departed member. While ostensibly about David Gilmour's actual pilot training, the song carried deeper metaphorical weight about breaking free from restrictive creative partnerships. The lyrics spoke of liberation and new beginnings, but industry insiders recognized the underlying message. Producer Aubrey Powell noted the prophetic quality of the song, explaining how it captured the band's desperate need to, quote, learn to start over again without one of our contributors. The track reached #1 on the Billboard Album Rock chart, proving that Pink Floyd could indeed soar without Waters' guidance. Gilmour himself confirmed the dual meaning during interviews, stating that, quote, we were, as Pink Floyd, learning to fly again. This wasn't merely about piloting aircraft, but about navigating the treacherous waters of continuing as Pink Floyd without their primary songwriter. The success of Learning to Fly became Pink Floyd's first evidence that they could create commercially viable music without Waters' involvement, undermining his claims about the band being, quote, spent creatively. His reaction was swift and cutting. He dismissed A Momentary Lapse of Reason as, quote, a clever forgery, criticizing the songs as poor and Gilmour's lyrics as third-rate. But the album's commercial success, reaching #3 in both the UK and US, suggested that audiences disagreed with Waters' assessment. You Know I'm Right, Gilmour's personal attack. Perhaps the most direct musical assault on Waters came not from a Pink Floyd album, but from Gilmour's 1984 solo work, You Know I'm Right. Released during the final tensions before Waters' departure, the song represented Gilmour's unfiltered frustration with his bandmates' controlling behavior and unwillingness to compromise. The track didn't begin as an attack on Waters, according to Gilmour himself. He later admitted to Mojo magazine that, quote, this didn't begin life as a song about Roger, but ended up as one, prompted by the future of Floyd being in doubt. You're tempted to allow yourself to let those grumbles surface in things. The lyrics painted a picture of an impossible creative partnership, with lines that clearly referenced Waters' stubborn nature and need to disagree with everything. Gilmour sang about having problems with someone who, quote, always have to disagree, and questioned why they couldn't, quote, try to see the other side. The song's confrontational tone marked a rare moment when the typically diplomatic Gilmour allowed his frustration to surface publicly. Years later, Gilmour expressed some regret about the direct nature of the attack, telling Mojo that, quote, I think it's generally a poor idea, and if I went back to it, I probably wouldn't do that. It's impossible not to grumble and moan about the inequalities and injustices of life. Lost for words, the boxing match metaphor. The most sophisticated and pointed attack on Waters came with Lost for Words from Pink Floyd's 1994 album The Division Bell. Co-written by Gilmour and his then-fiancée Polly Sampson, the song was allegedly inspired by Waters' rejection of an invitation to participate in what Gilmour believed would be Pink Floyd's final album. The track's lyrics told the story of extending an olive branch only to have it violently rejected. Gilmour sang about opening his door to enemies and asking if they could, quote, wipe the slate clean, only to be told to, quote, please go f*** yourself. The song's bitter tone reflected years of accumulated resentment and the impossibility of reconciliation. Pink Floyd's packaging for Lost for Words made the combative nature even more explicit. The single featured boxing gloves on its cover, while the album's liner notes included an image of boxing gloves and a boxing commentator declaring winner by a knockout during the song's interlude. These visual metaphors left little doubt about the song's target and Pink Floyd's confidence in their victory over Waters. The use of the Lydian mode in Lost for Words, the only example in Pink Floyd's entire catalog, also represented something unique and unreachable by Waters. Poles Apart, addressing two ghosts. One of the most intriguing songs from The Division Bell was Poles Apart, which directly addressed both Syd Barrett and Roger Waters in its verses. According to co-writer Polly Sampson, The first verse spoke to Barrett while the second targeted Waters, creating a powerful meditation on lost partnerships and creative divergence. The second verse, which began with "Hey You," a deliberate reference to Waters' song of the same name from The Wall, painted a picture of someone who had lost their way and betrayed their original vision. The lyrics questioned whether Waters had realized, quote, "what you'd become," and suggested he was running from more than just his bandmates. This direct confrontation, through Waters' own lyrical reference, showed the sophistication of Gilmour and Sampson's approach to their musical warfare. The song's structure allowed Gilmour to position himself as both victim and survivor, someone who had watched former collaborators fall away while maintaining his own artistic integrity. The third verse offered a more melancholic reflection on how, quote, "all the sadness fell away," suggesting time had healed some wounds, but the divisions remained permanent. Take It Back. While Take It Back from the Division Bell was officially about environmental destruction and Mother Earth reclaiming what humanity had damaged, many interpreted the song as an extended metaphor for Pink Floyd's relationship with Waters. The ecological themes provided perfect cover for a more personal message about creative partnerships gone toxic. The lyrics spoke of someone who, quote, "spy on her and lie to her, making promises I cannot keep," before pushing the relationship to the limit to see if she will break. These lines could easily describe Waters' increasingly controlling behavior during Pink Floyd's later albums, when he began to dominate creative decisions and marginalized his band's contributions. The song's recurring threat that, quote, "she might take it back," carried dual meaning, both as an environmental warning and as artistic reclamation. Wearing the Inside Out. Wright's contribution. Richard Wright's rare vocal contribution on Wearing the Inside Out represented another layer of Pink Floyd's response to Waters' dominance. The song marked Wright's first lead vocal performance since Time from the Dark Side of the Moon, symbolically reclaiming his voice after years of being marginalized during the Waters era. The lyrics dealt with themes of isolation and recovery, describing someone who had stayed out of sight and become no more than alive before gradually, quote, "creeping back to life." Many interpreted this as Wright's personal journey of rediscovering his creative voice after being effectively silenced during the final cut sessions when Waters had wanted to remove him from the band entirely.
We've been out on tour already, so it's just nothing to rust off.
Was it fun?
It was fun.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to being back on the boards. Cheers.
Ollie?
See ya.
I'll try and make that if I can, Phil.
The instrumental statement of Marooned. Pink Floyd's Grammy Award-winning instrumental Marooned served as perhaps their most subtle response to Waters' dismissal of their musical abilities. The track, composed entirely by Gilmour and Wright, proved Pink Floyd could create emotionally powerful music without any lyrics or conceptual framework, elements that Waters had claimed were essential to the band's success. The 5.5-minute instrumental showcased Gilmour's guitar work over Wright's keyboards and Mason's rhythmic foundation, creating what Stereogum described as sounding as much like Pink Floyd as anything on their mid-70s releases. The track's Grammy win in 1995 for Best Rock Instrumental Performance represented a significant vindication for the post-Waters lineup. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think the band's musical responses to Roger Waters were justified artistic expression or petty revenge? Let us know in the comments section below.